keep you late.
I'm sorry.
It was unframed.
I
think the North Cedar people are going to
You sit over there. I thought people asked me away. You want me to sit behind you?
Well, good evening and welcome to the Cedar Falls Public Library. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Kelly Stern, the library director. This is my annual report to you. So I'm just going to share a quick overview of some things that happened in our last year and then open it up for questions afterwards. Yep, I already turned on the recorder. I am on it, Kevin. This is our annual report. So our current board of trustees is listed on the right, and I just put a little note there because this is going to go on our library website after today. So just a little note. There's a social media influencer who is a librarian in California who has become famous. He's on all the morning talk shows now, and Amy Poehler did a video with him. But he's just such an energetic person, and he talks about library joy and shares stories of neat things that happen in his library. And so the last year has been a little challenging for us in some ways. We had 2 staff members pass away in the last year and a half. We've been understaffed for a very long time, but as of about a month ago, we're fully staffed for the first time in 4 years. So it feels really good, and I feel like knocking on wood because I don't want anybody to leave now. But anyway, it's been challenging, but it's also been a time to the loss of the staff members who felt so passionately about library work for their communities was a reminder to us of why we do what we do. And so we carry on with the good work. Our mission is cultivating enduring pathways to experiences that inspire, enrich, and captivate the imagination. And our values are listed over on the right. Early in library school, a professor asked us, what's the purpose of a library? And I said, to help us find what we're passionate about and pursue that. And she said, oh, that's lovely. You're not from Iowa, are you? But I believe that's true. I've heard stories from celebrities like Drew Carey, who said that when he played on one of those celebrity game shows, and he donated his earnings to the Ohio Library Association, and they asked him why he chose that organization. And he said because when he was a kid, a librarian gave him a book about how to tell a joke that changed his life. So we just never know how we can impact the people who walk through the doors, and we take that very seriously. So just an overview of some programs that we've done at the library over the last year. We're mainly famous for story times and the summer library program and author talks and book clubs, but we do so much more than that. We also have STEM and STEAM programs, craft programs, maker programs in our makerspace. We now do cooking programs with our portable kitchen in the co-lab that the Friends purchased for us. We do all kinds of outreach programs. We participated in the downtown block party in the fall. Becca and I were at the sand pile. She takes events to Cattle Congress and the Arboretum, story time in the park. We have a story walk at Big Woods Lake that has a picture book that's on these displays, so as you walk around the lake you can also read a story. And she, as soon as she could, partnered with the Iowa Library for the Blind, and it has Braille on it now. So it's great, more accessible.
You would need to contact them.
Over on the left is baby story time, and then a puppet show, and probably a story time craft. We have a partnership with NASA, and Katie Nedwick, one of our youth librarians, arranged for Roger Shari to do a presentation here while he was in Cedar Falls for Sturgis Falls last summer. He packed the community center. We had 300 chairs over there, and the place was packed. Mississippi River Museum came for the summer library program last summer. There's a Charlie Cart cooking program. G. Liu, who has a booth at the farmer's market, I understand, with another person. She did a program on making traditional Chinese dumplings, and then later she did a program on making mooncake for the autumn festival. I'm not saying that right probably, but anyway, the classes filled up in like 5 minutes, and we just can't offer as many as people want because our instructors don't want to spend all their time teaching classes apparently. We do an annual author visit for 5th graders. It started before I was hired as the youth librarian 14 years ago, but it brings in a nationally known author of middle grade books, and then the Cedar Falls schools bus in all of their 5th graders, about 100 at a time, so that they can meet with the author. Our friends purchase a copy of one of the author's books, and their teachers read them aloud in class before the author's visit, so that every child who attends has read at least one of the author's books when they come. Specifically timed at 5th grade, because we know that when kids get into junior high, social events and sports and all of those things sort of take over, and a lot of kids spend less time reading. So meeting an author in person and getting really excited about reading right before they head off to where there are going to be more things competing for their time, that's what we love about this program. There's a story walk up there, story time in the park. Our teen librarian, Megan Blackford, got a STEM grant for an aquaponics system that she's using with teens, and it's actually located on the 2nd floor behind the reference desk. We had a branding project this year. Before this year, or before 2023, the library had a sort of logo that was used for the Capitol campaign when the building was built, and it was old and outdated and for that specific purpose. So with money from the Cedar Falls Community Foundation, from one of our endowments or quasi-endowments, we did a branding project, and this is our logo. We actually have several logos that we can choose from depending on the occasion. And we have a mascot who is Fable the Fox. And Becca has placed Fable in lots of businesses around Cedar Falls with a little note that if you find Fable, snap a picture and come to the library and get your I Found Fable sticker. You can do that too. Just to, at a glance, a few of the big numbers that people are kind of curious about. We circulated over 430,000 items in FY23. We have just about 30,000 library card holders, and in a city of 40,000, that's really not bad. We know that we have card holders from other communities around us, but the vast majority are Cedar Falls residents. We had just under 20,000 uses of our public computers and almost 65,000 Wi-Fi uses. So interesting how those numbers keep getting farther and farther apart. We had 160,000 visits to our building. We offered 652 programs in FY23 and over 12,000 attendees at those programs. We also offer our meeting rooms for public use for nonprofits when they're not being used for library programs, and we had 369 meeting room uses. Just a quick look at our collections. If you've ever wondered how many items we have just under 135,000 physical items. So books, movies, library of things items. We have over 15,000 materials in e-format that you can download. And so printed books are still the majority. E-materials are next up, and then audio, video, and then that tiny little slice that doesn't even have a label is other. So that's like our library of things that contains musical instruments, tech devices like hotspots and Chromebooks and GoPro cameras and just all kinds of things. Games. We have a seed library. You can check out garden tools here. You can check out oversized lawn games. And then for circulation, again, physical circulation still accounts for the vast majority. E-materials about 13%, and database uses a little bit less. If you're wondering about age groups, children's materials account for almost 60% of our checkouts. Adults are next, and then young adults. And then just to look at the last 5 years, because COVID really changed everything. We had our biggest year when it came to statistics in FY19 in a lot of ways. And we were on track in FY20 to surpass even FY19. And then COVID happened, and for 3.5 months, things came to a standstill. So FY21 was the worst. And then we started coming back from that so that our visits they're getting closer. Our statistics are getting closer to what they were before COVID. I have an asterisk next to circulation of books because the state library has changed the label, the way that we report those items, so it's not really comparable. It's really a little bit less than that for circulation of books because that contains other kinds of items as well. So total collection use, including database use and all of that, is 430,000 this year as opposed to 529 before COVID. So we're coming back slowly but surely. What we've noticed is that checkouts have increased at a greater rate coming back than physical visits to the library. So what that tells us is that trend of people coming less often but checking out more while they're here, still holding true today.
You're seeing any trends for the programming use? Is that still being lower? Is it
It's
people aren't
lower.
coming out as much?
So we've been talking about why this is. Our summer library program numbers were a little down this year too. We wonder, we're just speculating because we don't know for sure, more people are traveling this year than they have in the past few. That could account for part of it. We're not really sure. Part of it probably is also that we offered fewer programs while we were understaffed than we did when we were fully staffed. So we can only do so much. We have lots of supporters, and just in case you're interested in the budget, the vast majority of our budget comes from the city's general fund. FY23 still had a library levy, so that's why I included that there. So income at the top and expenditures at the bottom. All of that non-governmental income includes things like our endowment and quasi-endowment funds in the Cedar Falls Community Foundation that we spent. The Friends of the Cedar Falls Public Library. We could not do what we do without our friends. So every once in a while I would have somebody, when I was a youth librarian, tell me, I don't want my tax dollars paying for crayons for kids. And actually, none of that stuff gets paid for by tax dollars. So people's tax dollars pay for staff, they pay for lights, utilities, that sort of thing. And through the levy, it paid for materials. But all of the programs that we offer and all of the supplies that we use for programs come from our friends of the library who operate a used bookstore downstairs called the Book Nook. And so that supports all of our regular programs, all of the storytime supplies and the toys in the youth department and the honorariums that we give to guest authors and guest speakers and so forth. All that comes from other than tax dollars.
Kelly, can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
On the table is a brochure about the Friends, and we do get a big amount of money from our Book Nook, but also through membership. So on the back, if you're interested in joining the Friends, there's an easy way to sign up and be a friend. So continue to help our library.
Thank you. And the Friends also help us with our biggest events. So every other year we have a children's book festival. And in the past, every other year we had a LitCon, which was sort of a con for readers and a chance for adults to put on their Game of Thrones costumes. But we don't know if that particular event is going to continue because it was started by one of the staff members who passed away, and I don't know if anybody else is going to not be too sad to pick that up and carry it forward. But anyway, we had our Children's Book Festival. Actually, that is our Summerfest from last year. kickoff to summer reading, and the Friends provided almost all of the staffing for that. We rented inflatable games and foam cannons for a foam party, and the Friends worked it, and we couldn't do it without them. And just a quick update on Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, because that's a project that is a joint project of all of the Black Hawk County Public Libraries. We decided as library directors that we thought all children in Black Hawk County should have access to this program. It's a book gifting program. The Dollywood Foundation pays for most of it. They provide the infrastructure. They mail the books out each month. They charge affiliates or areas that want to have the program $2.20 per book per child. Now, if you know anything about the price of books, these children's books are probably $14, $16 each. So it's very little money that we're required to raise in order to participate in Black Hawk County. Right now, we have 2,629 children registered, and just for scale, there are only 8,000 children in Black Hawk County that are eligible who are under 5. We've had 670 graduates, so children who turned 5 and aged out of the program. And to date, Dollywood has mailed over 65,000 books to Black Hawk County children. We have so many supporters for that. The Guernsey Foundation donated to that, the Laurel Trust in Waterloo. We've used Cedar Falls Community Foundation funds for that. John Deere has a giving program where their employees can have a certain amount withdrawn from each check to go towards this project. We have so many people who are involved in making this happen, so we want to continue it as much as possible. Over on the left is a staff member's daughter receiving her book from Imagination Library. And what's next for us at the library? We are about to migrate to a new software system to do our library work, and it will provide your catalog. We think it will be more intuitive, easier for patrons to use, easier for us to use. February 26th is the go live date, so hopefully everything goes smoothly and there are no hiccups. This year is the 20th birthday of the library building. So I think we need to have a celebration. Becca and I have been talking about doing that in July, and I've mentioned it to the Friends so that they can help us out with that as well. So we'll have another party in the parking lot with foam cannons and games and whatnot. We're going to continue to expand our partnerships with local organizations and look for additional outreach opportunities to reach people in the community with library services. We are revisiting and revising our library strategic plan beginning this year. That process takes a while, so we're going to start it late this year. And, like Michael Threets, the famous librarian, we're going to try to continue to create library joy for people in Cedar Falls who use the library. I love the stories that staff tell. You have the best library staff ever. The people I work with, I am so fortunate to have coworkers who are so talented and creative and dedicated. They have the best ideas, and they're very passionate about what they do. But Becca actually created this little form that staff members can use to report bucket filling moments. So when they see something in the library that touches them or makes them smile, they can share it with other staff through this form. And there are so many great stories in there about how people have come to the library and gotten what they needed, or made a connection with somebody if that's what they needed, found the information they needed, or just, had an opportunity to smile. So anyway, we're going to try to create library joy. So, what questions do you have?
Kelly, just like as a reminder of, for my own mind, and just a reminder overall, because it's not, what services do people get coming to the library besides like materials? Like,
Thank you.
If I needed help with a resume or something like that?
Yes.
Can I do that at the library? What kind of
Yes.
things like that do we
Thank
get?
you for reminding me, I should have said that. If I'd been looking at my notes, I would have mentioned that, but I was just ad-libbing. So our reference department, the desk is on the second floor, they will do one-on-one appointments with people who need device help. So somebody gets a phone for Christmas and they don't know how to, use it or whatever, they can make an appointment and come in and get up to half an hour of individualized help with that. You're right, they will help with resumes, they'll help with online job applications, with, any number of government forms that people who are technology averse can't seem to navigate. Now, we don't fill out the forms for them, but what staff do is to help them use the technology. For liability reasons, we don't do any entering of information for them, but we'll help them use the technology. We also, let's see, what else do we do for services? We still have curbside service, believe it or not. We have one person who uses it still. And we're going to continue to offer it. It helps her, and yeah. We do printing. People can come here to print. They can fax, although the fax machine's been acting up lately. What else can they do? They can make things in our CoLab makerspace. We have a 3D printer. So if you want to 3D print something, you can do that here.
We have a Cricut that they can use.
Pardon me?
We have a Cricut that they can use if they want to.
Cricut cutting machine if you're a scrapbooker or a card maker. Yep.
Sewing machines.
Sewing machines, absolutely. Thank you. What else am I leaving out? Yeah, we offer other services as well. Yeah.
My husband is not tech savvy, and I was out of town one time, and he came down here and somebody helped him.
Good.
And it was, thank God, because I didn't have to walk him through it over the phone. So thank you.
Good to know.
Is there anything you see coming up with new services, new things that you guys are looking into strategically that
So,
we can be keeping in mind?
yeah, so part of, when we add a new service, part of it is in response to either an observation of a need in the community, people are asking about something, or people suggest something to us. And then when we start our strategic planning process again, a big part of that is getting community input. So we'll ask people to come and share their ideas. What would they like to see here? Some other libraries offer things like notaries. We did have a notary, but when the staff member who offers that decides not to do it anymore, then that goes away. Passport services is another thing I've heard. So whatever the community asks us to do, we will give serious consideration and see if we can do it.
Like, for example, one of the things we made priority in this last strategic plan was a space for tweens. This library is located very close to Lincoln Elementary and St. Pat's. They have early outs on Wednesdays, and the flow from the school goes to Casey's and then they come to here. You can just track them. And then they wander. They wander the building. And so one of the things we got feedback on was having a space for them. And we only have so much space in this building to try and dedicate to it, but if you go down to the youth department now, there is a corner specifically for the tweens that has activities that we've bought that are geared towards them, and that we've asked for their input from programming, what should be in that corner. So I found out about different tactile things that they may like sensory stuff. So there's pop-its and something called a plus plus that I'd never heard of before, but now those are in the corner. And so they're like little, they look like hashtags or pound marks or number, and you build with them. Plus, that looks plus. Anyways, and so that took several years of our 5-year strategic plan to get all of that developed and in place. But yeah, that was one of our focuses, and I think we can mark that mostly complete, ongoing, because we always are listening to our tweens and what they want to make for that space. But yeah, That's a big one, like a feedback that we got that we were able to implement.
And the youth department does offer after-school programs on Wednesdays.
Oh, yeah.
It's not that there's nothing for those kids to do here. That's just a recipe for disaster. Early out and nothing to do.
Hannah, and I talked about, remember when we talked about third space?
Yes.
About how third spaces just aren't, I don't know, as prevalent as maybe they, I think my generation, the third space could have been like a mall. Well,
Right.
obviously malls aren't, but a place where people can go be social, hang out, maybe not necessarily have to have tons of money to be able to do so.
Yes,
So, that to me is a third space.
because nothing costs here. Library cards are free, checkouts are free. The only thing that there's ever a charge for is consumables if you use the CoLab outside of a library program. 3D printing, because we have to pay for the resin, and
Printing in general.
printing, yeah. But program attendance is free, you know.
Can you talk a little bit about how the rise of ebooks has affected your catalog and your budget?
So, good question. Ebook pricing is something that the American Library Association has tried lobbying for on behalf of public libraries. The pricing structure for e-materials is not comparable to print structures. So when we purchase e-materials, for example, an ebook could be $120 when its print counterpart is $25 or $30. And in addition to costing more upfront, they put limits on how many times it can be used. So it could be, you can use this for 24 checkouts and then you have to purchase it again, or for 2 years and then you have to purchase it again. And we know that just from observation that print books would last much longer than the e-circulations that we are allotted when we purchase those materials. When COVID happened, we immediately shifted a lot of our print budget to e-materials, knowing that people would need to access those things from home. And that's only continued to increase. We've noticed that people especially like downloadable audiobooks through Libby and Hoopla. So Libby's the product that we pay a huge price for the e-materials. Hoopla is a per transaction charge, so it has different content from Libby, but we're charged a certain amount for each download that our patrons make, and we've budgeted a certain amount so that we don't go over our budget. So that's why we're limited to 5 downloads from Hoopla a month. And once you hit your 5, you have to wait till the next month starts. We also have a daily limit. So if a lot of people hit Hoopla at once, they might have to wait until the next day to check out.
And then one thing we really like about ebooks that you can, when you check out from Libby, you can either read in the Libby app or you can read in the Kindle app, whatever you prefer. But one of the great things about ebooks is its accessibility. So if you need to read large print, and
Yes.
we don't have the large print copy, but we have the ebook, you can control the print size on your tablet or your Kindle, your reader. In addition, there are fonts that you can use that are better when you have dyslexia, the dyslexia font. And both Libby and the Kindle app provide that as a font option. So if there are not options with physical objects in the library for your accessibility, it may on Libby.
We don't think that print materials are going away anytime soon, and it seems that younger generations in particular have a fondness for print over e-materials. So, we'll just have to see how that trend progresses. I think it's people my age who are the biggest consumers of e-books.
Because you can multitask with them.
And and I can take, a whole library with
Yeah.
me when I travel.
Yeah.
But I'm a both and girl. I'll do print and and audio.
If we're doing audio though, the trend is CD audiobooks, that trend's down. But we have playaways, which is like a little MP3 player. That's tracking up just because we're offering more of them. And then the e-audio on Hoopla and Libby tracks up too.
Well, thank you for asking. What else would you like to know? Yeah, Kelly.
Are you guys doing like computer classes like you did in the past, or you're not doing that anymore?
We're not doing classes, but we're offering one-on-one device help. So you can make an appointment with a reference librarian and get your own personal class. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I also supervise the community center. So we have one part-time employee who works over there during the day while seniors are there. The community center has a partnership with NEI 3A, the Area Agency on Aging. And it's an in-kind thing, so in return for not being charged rent, NEI 3A doesn't charge seniors who frequent the community center, they don't charge them for the classes that they take there. So they do fitness classes, and outside of NEI 3A, there are card groups that meet over there. We arrange for programs that seniors want. We have a line dancing class. We partner with the Hearst for Craft programs. So that's the other hat I wear.
So does that money for this part-time staff person come out of the library
No,
budget?
it comes out of the community
Understood,
center
okay.
budget.
Because that's also a third space as well.
It
Just
is.
for like the other
And
end.
it's not just for seniors.
Right.
It's for everybody.
What is your staff number? You said you're fully staffed.
33, I believe. Yeah. 34 if you count the person who staffs the rentals at the community center.
So you breezed over your budget a little bit.
Oh, you want to go back?
Well, what are your concerns? Or you don't have any budget concerns?
I do have budget concerns.
We all got that.
Yeah.
It's nice of you to offer.
Yeah, real serious
Yeah.
there.
I'm kind of glad you asked that. Yeah, it kind of depends on what happens in the legislature. I am concerned, especially because Jennifer has already warned me that FY26 is going to be tight. So with so much unknown in the future, I don't know. I've been talking to my husband about this because I've just stewed about it, and I could, I have stomachache half the time when I think about the legislation that's pending right now. But the only way that we can respond is with resilience. So whatever happens, even if the worst case happens and they pass these bills, doesn't mean that council has to do what it's a May thing, you have that option. So we're hoping that we're valuable enough to the city that that you'll be willing to find a way to help us to continue to serve patrons. So what we do, I think, is not only important as a third space, but Kelly, forgive me because you've heard this story before.
Oh, okay.
I was born in Waverly many decades ago, and we lived 2 blocks from the Waverly Public Library before I started school. My dad was a police officer in Waverly. My mom was a stay-at-home mom until all of us kids started school. We didn't have a lot of disposable income to buy books and toys and stuff like that. So every day, when I was old enough to walk those 2 blocks by myself, this was in the days before safe child policies, and Grandma lived halfway there in the next block so she could look out her window and make sure I got to the library. But I would go to the library every day and check out books. And the children's librarian at the time, I just remember thinking she was the most lovely person in the world because she saved books for me that she knew I would like. I went to her story times. I absolutely adored her. I did things there that probably most preschoolers don't do. This was back, in the 60s, late 60s, and they had these little video players. It must have been the precursors to VCRs, but they had these cassette video things that would snap into them and you'd watch a video on a little screen, but they were all science related. So I watched things like frog dissections and stuff about photosynthesis and whatever. They had those old stereoscopes where you put the card in and it looks like it's 3D. Those were already outdated, but they still kept them out. But anyway, the library was a place of exploration and learning for me. So when I started kindergarten, I was already reading proficiently. And I have to thank the public library for that because every study that I've read as a librarian, when I was a youth librarian too, and I worked on a PhD at Iowa in literacy, there's a study that the National Center for Educational Statistics did that's still ongoing. The first one was in 1999. What they did was they followed a bunch of kids from birth through 8th grade, and they collected data on what they did before they started school. And then once they started school, they tracked their academic success in all the ways that schools do, with test scores and grades and whatnot. And they identified which students were academically successful. And then they went back and looked at how they spent their first 5 years of life before they started school. And after they factored out things like things that are normally blamed for differences in achievement, things like race and socioeconomic status, what they were left with were the things that truly made a difference. And right at the top of the list was going to the library, being read to, having books in the home. And those are things that might not have happened to the extent that they did in my home had it not been for the public library. So I know that I'm not an unusual case. I know that we have lots of patrons who rely on us for access to books and information and ideas, who would have a very different life were it not for what they can access to for free that's been purchased with their tax dollars. So I don't actually remember what the original question was.
Budget.
Budget, yes. So yeah, worst case scenario, we'll just have to see what happens and pivot. Yes.
To piggyback on your story, I'm Vicki Alleman, and I'm the secretary of the Friends of the Library. And when I was in graduate school, I read and did a paper about hegemony and the ability of government to suppress people and oppress people because they didn't have information. And it really struck me at that time, and it's stuck with me ever since then, that our public library is the leveler. It is the access to all of our citizens to all the information.
Yeah.
And unless people have ready access to that information, it's a threat to democracy. And that really stuck with me, I think, to say people who live in the city can come here for free and access information and make up their own minds about what they want for themselves and their families. And I hope that we don't ever have to limit the number of days or the number of hours
Yes.
in a day that the library is open, so that we limit access of our citizens to that really foundational part of our democracy.
Or reduce programs, because those early literacy experiences that children have before school starts are so important to their development, their learning development. I'm glad you mentioned that, because people say, well, everything's on the internet now. You can just find, well, if you know how to sift through 500 million results that contain more misinformation than information, and when the information that has been through multiple levels of editorial scrutiny are all behind paywalls, that's a problem.
And
they're
we
not
know
behind a
that
paywall there
algorithms-
because we're providing it.
We know that algorithms tend to give you more of the same.
Yeah.
And so you end up in your own little bubble and you don't get a rounded picture.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes?
Are you doing any mobile services or like?
We do. We have a book bike that we take to story time in the park in the summer and to outreach events, farmers market, I can't think of the name. And
There's other things I go
Where else?
to that maybe I don't take the book bike to, because that's limited to the summer months.
oh yes, we have a volunteer storytime program that goes to daycares and preschools too. It's called Traveling Tales. The youth department has created these portable storytime kits in tubs. Our volunteers will come and check out a tub. They're themed and designated for a certain age group. of preschoolers. So they'll check out the tub, they'll go to their site, do a story time with the materials in the tub, and then leave it there for the month for the class to use. And then the next month when they go back, they bring a new one and bring the old one back. So it's like a volunteer outreach story time program. Mostly retired teachers and librarians who are doing it.
And then Mary Cable, like with third.
Yes, we have a librarian whose position is paid for with Enrich Iowa funds from the state library, and she services homebound patrons. She delivers materials to them, and she also takes materials to senior living facilities.
And we had some very generous donations this year that will help fund some collections at some senior living facilities, we hope.
Large print.
Large print.
I think people don't understand that not everything's available in large print. There's a very limited amount of what's published every year that's available in large print, and then it goes out of print really quickly. So we got a large donation from an estate specifically for large print. It's probably going to take us at least a decade to spend, but great, we'll be good for large print books. Did you have another question?
I was just gonna ask, you don't, or unless it's some organization or a way to do it, but you don't take just general book donations, right? Or do you?
So I think the only thing we don't want are things that are in bad repair, things with
Or like textbooks.
textbooks. We don't want your World Book Encyclopedia from 1975. We don't want your National Geographic collection. But when we do get donations, the people, the librarians who select for the collections, they look through it first. And if there's anything that would fill a gap in the collection, but it's up to date and it's something that people would want, they'll add it to the collection. What they don't goes to the friends of the library to sell in the book nook.
Well, I think there's a sign out back and walk by before.
Oh, just not to put donations in the Dropbox.
You do take donations,
Yes.
just don't take them, don't put them in.
Not through the Dropbox, yeah. The Friends have some, they look like clothes hampers in the atrium by each door that you can put donations into. Yeah, we want donations, just not in that box. But if we put more text on that, people don't read it.
Kelly, when they were talking about mobile services, maybe you, Rebecca, do they still go to the natural area, North Cedar, and do some
Story time in the park.
story time there?
Yeah.
Is that where your story time is?
We do story time. I travel to different parks for story time in the park. And then we have done stuff at Big Woods that's not necessarily story time. We've done nature scavenger hunts along the story walk, and some other activities kind of along the story walk. So we have our program, but we're also promoting our free passive program right there. But we do quite a bit of stuff outside the library. So we like to go to schools. Like this Thursday, I'm going to North Cedar because they have their North Cedar night, and so I'll get to sign people up for library cards and talk about our programs and services for kids. I got to go to a women's clinic last month, so that'll be for the next annual report. But I got to go to a women's clinic and talk to some people who are pregnant and talk about the importance of literacy and starting reading habits early. And then I was invited by the nurse who helped facilitate that program to go to Youth Together this month, where I get to talk to some pregnant teens and again talk about the importance of the first 5 years and introducing reading habits and getting them to places where they can have enriching experiences. So
Sign them up for
sign
Imagination
them up for
Library.
Imagination Library, talk to them about 1,000 books before kindergarten, give them those library cards, give them all the resources that we can provide for the library. So there's a lot of different places that we've been exploring how we can go further out into the community and see how we, like there's so many places that are already doing a lot of great things. How can we enhance that? How can we help them further some of their goals? And then how can they help further some of ours, which is really just what our mission statement is cultivating enduring pathways that enrich, incite or something.
Inspire.
Inspire, enrich, inspire.
Captivate.
Better than
Make
citing.
imagination.
You have homework, Becca.
I know, I used to be able to say it, but then I haven't had to quote it for a while.
In fairness to her, how many of us here can say the city's mission statement?
The city's mission statement is actually posted at the youth desk, so if you need some help,
Is it?
it is right there.
All right.
Because
There's a reference.
we have it posted to remember, so all of our staff can remember our mission, the city's mission, and what all of our values are. So we have it there as a daily reminder.
Jen, when I was still youth librarian, Friends Park was one of the ones I took Storytime Report to. Yeah.
Kelly, I was wondering if you could fill in a gap for me. In
Yeah.
what capacity do we partner with or collaborate with partners in education for like a reading buddies type of opportunity with Cedar Falls Public Libraries in the school libraries?
We do several things with schools in addition to Cedar Valley's Youth Read. I'm going to let Becca talk about what she does specifically because I'm not in that role anymore.
COVID had quite the impact on that. So right now, I am not in the schools as much as I would like because they didn't allow visitors into the schools for a very long time after COVID. But recently, the teen librarian and one of the youth library assistants went to one of the junior highs. I want to say it was P junior high that they went to so they could talk about programs.
Don't you do literacy nights at schools?
Oh yeah, I do literacy nights. So I've been invited back to Aldridge for their literacy night, North Cedar. I'm going to theirs like I mentioned. I did Hanson's last year. I go to all of the elementary literacy nights.
And then summer library program.
And the summer library program promotion. Actually, this was the first year I get in after COVID. They have not let me into the building for that. But they have promised me this May I get to go into all of them again. So I'm really excited to be able to do that. And I'm sure there's more things that I'm constantly talking with the librarians of those buildings. So I'm sure we're doing more. But they're just not coming to mind, which is really unfortunate. But yes, we like to do partnerships with the schools. And we really want to support our school libraries because we've talked about legislation that's impacting public libraries. All the legislation that impacted school libraries was last year and is still ongoing. So we're trying to be good partners with them.
I was a school librarian before I was a public librarian, so these are all my former coworkers. We're just a big family. Library world is small.
And I have a meeting with one of the school librarians actually this week too, where we're going to talk even more about what we can do to support each other. So.
Anything else? Thank you so much. We know that you have horribly difficult decisions to make, and I just appreciate all that you do. I know you guys put in the hours and probably don't get thanked enough for what you do, but we do appreciate that we have a supportive city council and city staff. So we want to make you proud and help you to serve the citizens of Cedar Falls. So we welcome suggestions. So yeah, we would love to work with you. And I would like to personally offer that we will be your personal librarians if you'd like. If you ever have an issue that you need to research and what you need to see is behind the paywall or whatever, or you don't have time to look it up, we have reference librarians who love doing research. So just let me know and I'll hook you up with a reference librarian and they can do searches for you.
Also, I'd like to invite you, we talked about Cedar Valley Youth Read, how we bring an author for the 5th graders. The author comes on a Wednesday night to do a public program too, so that anybody from the community is welcome. It's always Wednesday, right before it's at like 6:30. I'm gonna give you the date right now, or I'm gonna go grab your bookmarks because I just got them delivered.
End of April.
End of April, April 24th at 6:30. Our author this year is Jennifer Nielsen. So if you would like to come and meet Jennifer Nielsen, I'm fangirling because I love her so much.
What's your book?
The book that is being featured with the 5th graders is called Rescue. But she writes a lot of historical fiction novels that are usually centered around like World War II or World War I. Though last year she had one that came out that was about the Titanic, which is always popular with the kids. But yeah, Rescue is set during World War II and follows a young girl whose father is a part of the British Army. She's living in France though. And he disappears, but he's left her, like, he's like a cryptologist, so there's a lot of codes that she ends up breaking, and she ends up having to flee the country with these Jewish refugees. Fascinating book, a lot of fun code, but she's also written other historical fiction novels that are like set in 1800s Lithuania during Russian occupation, and that's fascinating. It's called Words on Fire, and the way that it speaks about books and literature and culture, it made me cry. It was so good. And then she has a fantasy series that is amazing. It's called the Ascendant King series. I recommend it. Rescue, like just present tense, rescue.
The Friends have provided branded book bags for you, so if you'd like a CFPL bag, we have swag for you.
Thank
And
you.
help yourself to more refreshments. If you'd like to visit or have more questions, just let me know. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, nice job. Thanks for everything you guys do. Appreciate it.
Thank you, friends. Thank you, friends. Got you out in time to go have a beer, right, Gail?
What'd you say?
Actually, well,
Look, that's how far you North Cedar always go.
there's bad for us on the North Cedar Neighborhood Association.
You gonna go fix that campground this summer?
Maybe it's good for us.
It was interesting. I appreciate you and back in sharing the school.
Oh, yes.
I didn't see it. So I'm glad that is listening. Not just the idea, just the way it's such an important part. Friday reading I would be very biased.
We drive by these places all the time, I know.
So I'd be open to, other exposures, maybe a little detail. But I don't know if there's ever been anything like that as well, where you volunteer.
She's doing that right now.
Well, honestly,
I did, I got right here, Miss Dad.
I appreciate you sharing your why, this is very important, so thank you.
It's impossible. I go through something. I didn't know that I was past 2 years. Not yet. I'm going to Gil's party later. Yeah, good to see you.
Hi, Andy.
Hello, Kelly.
How are you doing? Oh, yeah.
We want to be ready for
At least just.
Oh, yes. But that's why we provide databases like newspapers
But you're on
Oh, in the old building,
I loved going to the library. So I enjoyed the library. But almost the same.
All right, I will.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the reading
That's over here. What can I do for you?
Yeah, because there is where we used to climb trail,
But I always-
that
resistance to
Well, before COVID, it always was in the library.
I feel like it's
And
easier
then during
rather
COVID,
than
when we
drop
were
it to
doing spinning of the whole.
give it a principle,
So, and actually it worked, even last year, it worked out well.
Saw those
to do
same
that
schools
because
right
we also
at
had- But it was time to bring it back to the library. It was good to do that.
So I talked to principal.
Come and see what we're all about.
Diminishing resistance is making it's a good thing that there's so many opportunities. My kids came through, I mean, two of my daughters now.
Well, yeah.
There's that opportunity.
What's interesting is.
So I'd like to see what
is when
opportunities
people will
exist for
come
us
from
further.
places
Maybe get some
and they'll
employers
see what
partnership.
else we have to offer, then they have that aha moment, like, oh, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know I could check out garden schools here or see.
You know, share where I was encouraged to do.
I didn't know you offered
Trying to get on with
this.
Summer going goal was, we'll see how we can get more reading opportunities.
I like your dedication to this. No, bad idea.
It's just not yet, but it's our catalog that's on, we have to go to school.
Our database is still being used, it's probably big company. So, for example, we're gonna purchase a new pricey appliance, we could use our database to access reviews of those things.
Well, I know the year that I started my master's degree, I was the only person in intro to graduate studies.
And we have all kinds of different databases.
And so the department chair would just talk classes and not working anyway as a department chair. I went to the library when it opened in the morning.
Subject to genealogy, for example.
I was doing the work that normally he would have spread over a.
So some of them you can access from home with your library card number. Some of them you have to access in the library because of the license. Probably. Because I don't want to misspeak. Actually, I have our webpage open, I think.
And then, is that other question, the thing is, I want to give somebody.
Because I was gonna say, actually, I invite some people, like, or would you like some?
Isn't that great?
African American heritage,
Yeah.
ancestry, auto repair. Brain Fuse is job help and homework help. Consumer reports. Courier. Creative Bug is crafting. It has video tutorials about how to do art and sewing projects. Driving tests. Explora is the general one, so it has like general periodicals, that's where you'll be able to find just all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Foundation directory, so if you work for a nonprofit,
I did
you
some
could
volunteer work for us.
look here to find grants.
I couldn't.
Heritage Hub and Heritage Quest, again for genealogy, Hispanic life in America. Newspapers, Ancestry Edition.
Also, if you have.
That's fine, I don't care.
Novelist is our vendors database, so
Yeah.
if you liked a certain book, you can go on Novelist and find recommendations based on what you like.
We had one.
People's Law Library and Points of View Reference Center.
We were getting assigned a child.
And you saw how I got here, right?
Parents.
I just went to the search feature at the top, chose website, and just typed in databases.
I mean, I just.
And then it was the first hit. Right there.
And
I
Steve.
feel like sometimes people don't know about the databases.
Yeah.
They suggest
But
it.
it's story, so
Yeah.
hopefully at least one more person. We'll find out of that. Any other big new additions or new projects?
Well, thank you.
Surprises,
I will,
anything unique from this past year?
The software update is going to be the biggest
Well,
thing.
yeah,
So will be the software that provides our catalog, but also that staff use on the back end for checking out.
Thanks for everything you're doing.
I enjoyed too.
How long have you been on?
Everything coming back to my
Yeah.
I tell people I used to go to all the boards, associations, I'd show up every once in a while, so I'd have some background on what you're talking about, so, yeah, we're just.
That's the biggest thing coming up.
I grew up in Dunkerton.
Has that already been contracted, or is that?
Yep, we went through the RFP process. Our go live date for our new software is February 26th. And we share that with the water
I
department.
feel like most people just stay.
We'll both be switching to the same day.
You don't.
And that contract come before the counter?
Yeah.
It did, and the library going out
Walking
for
was
it.
an experience. I loved living on campus. That's where I did grad
And it was the least expensive, but it also happens to be the best product, so.
I loved living on
I
there. I don't
know,
miss the traffic.
it's so rare when it
There's
does.
so many,
Yep, because usually, in order to get to
so
become the
many
least
people,
expensive, you know.
like a lot of, from all sorts.
It's-
Couple makes a product good.
It's actually open source
The
software,
library up there.
but what we're doing, what the company, we hired a company to do the implementation for us, and that's what it was.
Yeah, and then, we're still.
Quite a few, would have been near the end of last
Yeah.
quarter.
Oh,
last
it's nice to
year.
visit. And so it's interesting to see.
Koha Bywater. Koha is the name of the software. Bywater is the name of the company that's implementing for us, so that we don't have to code it from the results back.
And even.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming, I appreciate
No, well
it.
done. Appreciate it. I'll take you up on the first one.
Okay, absolutely.
Mine is, most time I spent
All of the
a lot of
libraries.
different projects over the years. The big
They would love you to do that.
Going on in different libraries.
And I'm gonna swing by and see if maybe we can get to it.
And even with.
I would love that, yeah.
The needs of all of the different.
Yeah.
One right, you get my eyes on it.
You have my email address,
Yep,
correct? So
I do.
just shoot me an email and we can
We'll get it
arrange a
figured out.
time.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, you're good.
I was gonna do it anyway.
I know, I always feel like free to jump in, I'm usually here the longest. It's hard to talk about libraries without thinking what's going on at this point. Board of Trustees, have they thought about the new proposed bill that would, just kind of regulate students parts, take some of their power away?
They've talked about what they can do as individuals. As a library board, they can't take a political stance, but as individuals,
I'm
they
sure
can
someone was
register
also
their
reading
church,
fun on the
reach out to their friends,
That's
also library lovers, and ask them.
That,
Yep.
that's the current.
Yeah.
I think there were
I
definitely
think a
now
couple
between water
might
and Cedar
probably
Falls
will reach out now, but you think a couple of them might register objections?
Oh, absolutely. I would be surprised
But still
if
leaning up.
less than the majority would.
I think that's
We have a
awesome.
very supportive board.
They were in there, we're still gonna be in. Nobody wants to.
Yeah. But like, we merged, right? There's Cedar Living, like, I live right in Cedar Living, right? We're like,
Well, it's
where am
good.
I?
I lived on City Boundary.
Yeah.
Did Becca have a title change?
Yes, you're librarian.
Yeah, and so we're so, we're different, but we're so linked at the same time, and there are, as I was talking about Milwaukee, even though we weren't that far away.
REBEKAH.
But there's so many people that don't
WSFORD.
each other, like I live in Waterloo, I live in Cedar Falls, like I said, I live in the Cedar area.
You know.
But we have so many common denominators.
Nope, that's Vicky back there.
Together.
In the kitchen is Rhonda Brady,
Yep.
she's our Friends
I
president.
think our generation's a little better at that.
I'm curious how many people have, and I used to work at the Ground Museum District, and so that was part of my job to learn all about local history and some of those underlying original issues among Cedar Falls and Waterloo and West Waterloo and West Waterloo. It's fascinating.
Yep.
I think we are slowly getting, there are still definitely some.
I personally appreciate it.
Some of that prejudice.
I know, I appreciate it.
I think it's
So I could focus my time on this rather than
Cool. Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for
Come back
this,
to me
it's all very
when I
good.
said a couple of the board
Yeah.
trustees. Now the name of the
So you're going to that, huh?
Oh, Koha by water.
For supper for my husband.
Remember thinking of your name.
Koha is Hawaiian for,
It's from New Zealand.
oh, New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I thought it was Hawaiian.
No, it's-
Why do you think it's
I don't know,
Sounds
but
like-
all you need to know is that Bywater is from Lord of the Rings, and Lord of the Rings was shot in New Zealand.
But Koha means, it means something about sharing.
Yeah, it's about, yeah, sharing resources. But it's from like the Maori and Maori, the New
Thank you.
Zealand.
We actually just decided to cut the library budget. Completely kidding, yeah, okay.
You would see a lot more devastation.
Well,
You probably would.
you know, I hit the pick up a little bit away from it.
Yeah.
They're gonna be.
Well, a lot of it is, it all is from the House File 718 that went through in May.
It's just crunching.
In there.
You can't.
No, but it's
One of their board members called me today.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
They're
We
thinking
are-
about how they can reorganize.
Yeah. So we are working to see if all the financially where we're at.
Yes.
But there's a lot of cities
Yeah.
that are not, I think it's spot.
And it's interesting, like where the levy was, so what was supporting, like in their budget.
Yeah.
So the levy for us was supporting some staff, but it
We'll
was
take
supporting
that
all
over
the
there.
material budget. Waterloo supporting that staff levy with all staff. So it'll impacts different.
But either way, you can't operate a library without staff or without.
Or materials,
So you
yeah.
have to cut.
Yeah. It doesn't help that they're basically saying, okay, we're gonna make you put everything in property taxes. But then we're also going to limit what you're allowed to collect for property
Right.
taxes, decrease valuations.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we're also gonna set a cap on how much you can increase, so that if you're behind, you can't increase it too much to catch up, so. You might as well just say like, we're cutting government.
Right.
That's what they're trying to do, is just
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
very difficult to fund anything.
yeah, I thought that when we saw like the language for that, I'm like, how can anybody within like local government want this? Like, who are they talking to that this was something that people were saying they want?
I keep trying to think of what is the end game? What do they want to gain from?
My general sense has always
Try
been,
that.
the goal is to make it harder to just frivolously increase taxes.
Yeah.
But I don't think they realize how much of a negative impact trying to maintain basic services that this is causing.
It's not as if our city operates in a very extravagant way, you know? It's times like this that I appreciate how lean our city has operated over the years.
You know,
There's been times when,
the
you know,
refrigerator,
staff
and then
have
we can just leave
grumbled.
it open, just
They
go.
also
But
make it
yeah.
hard for us to communicate what the tax rate ultimately means,
Yeah.
because, well, again, we'll probably need to do an article on this at some point when we do the actual budget, but,
Yeah.
like, when you look at the math, because they increase the rollback, so they're dropping the amount of your property that we can tax. So, like, if you look at it, the rate per $100,000 of a house with our estimated budget coming in, actually is decreased by 11%. So we're technically cutting by 11%. But property taxes went up 20%, so it goes, it was like, we'll be proposing the actual amount. But so like the numbers don't mean anything because there's so many variables they're moving around. And it's like, well, we're also moving the library funding from the levy to general, the property taxes. So you're not really getting taxed more, but now it looks like more on your property taxes because we're just shifting it from the levy to, so it's like, it's just moving stuff and it confuses.
Very true. Do you guys have to make any big considerations for this?
I turned in budget requests for what we need, And that now it's up to council to either approve it or not.
Yeah.
Though I will say there is one positive legislation going through right now that we hope does pass. And it is Dolly Parton Imagination Library trying to go statewide, and we are
Nice.
for that. We would not be like, there's multiple states that have already adopted it, and
Yeah.
so I know there was a push to get Iowa to do it, so I'm excited that
Yeah.
it's actually being proposed.
And if you look at the goal setting, there was a pretty strong support from
Yes.
council to make sure we are funding the library at, even though the levy is shifting, that we want to make sure it keeps going like that, and so.
Have any highlights of sorts for?
There was nothing unusual. We never ask for more than what we need. And usually we spend less, a little bit less than what we've asked for. We don't overspend.
Pay attention when we're,
We do.
our spreadsheets.
Personnel members would love spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And then our business person's amazing, so if I mess up, I just ask him, and then I get a.
He's an accountant.
Who is the
He's an
next
actual
person?
accountant, Tim Daniels.
Okay.
He's amazing.
I would like to schedule some time to just kind of meet with the staff and
Absolutely.
hang out for a bit.
Shoot me an email and we can arrange a time.
Okay. And the staff likes donuts and coffee and stuff, I'm glad that.
We like any treats, honestly.
I have discovered though that they favor the sugar because when I bring both, the sugar goes first.
Yeah, okay, I'll bring some donuts then. Donuts and coffee are a cheap way to make people happy.
Yeah.
Get more attendance too.
Mm-hmm.
Get a lot of attention.
All right. Nice to gather you.
Thank you again for
Kelly.
coming, we appreciate it.
Of course, we'll be in touch.
Okay,
Personnel numbers, no change.
Right.
Program
Yep.
services, same.
as long as we get funded, yeah. There shouldn't be any change.
Thank you. Quite a bit of attention going to the libraries. Always good to check in.
We just
Well,
like,
only attention at the state level.
Yeah, I know.
We're all about joy here.
like I said, like, we're just trying to spread that library joy. Like, one of the things that my little spreadsheet that I created that I love, 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 I created that